It was their third wedding anniversary, but there were no flowers, no celebrations, just silence and cold stares. In a mansion that could house 100 people, she felt lonelier than ever, standing by the window, her pale fingers gently traced the glass as if she could feel the outside world she could no longer see. Lianche, blind since the accident 2 years ago, had once believed that love could heal anything, but now she wasn't even sure if love had ever existed between them. Xavier Liu, the powerful, cold-hearted CEO of Liu Corporation, was known for his ruthless business tactics and even more ruthless behavior at home. People called him the Ice King, and he wore that title with pride. To the world, he was successful, untouchable, perfect. But to Lian, he was a stranger she shared a home with. A husband who never looked at her the same after her blindness. They had married in a whirlwind. Back then, Xavier had been gentle, almost warm, even if a little distant. Lian had fallen hard for him, giving him her heart without hesitation. But everything changed after the accident. She lost her sight, and Xavier lost his patience. His warmth turned to indifference. His kindness turned to cruel silence. He never raised his voice, but his cold behavior was louder than any scream. "Why do you even try to smile?" he had once said, without even glancing her way. "You're no different than a doll now." Lian remembered that sentence every single day. He never took her to family events anymore. He never introduced her to guests. She had become a ghost in her own home. The maids were the only ones who spoke to her, and even they had learned to whisper when Xavier was around. What made it worse was that Lian was pregnant, and he didn't know. She had found out a few weeks ago, clutching the test in trembling, hands in the bathroom while trying to keep her tears quiet. She had once dreamed of telling him and seeing a rare smile light up his face, but now she feared what he would say. Would he even care? Or worse, would he ask her to get rid of it? Each day, she felt herself breaking a little more, and each night, when she heard the sound of his car pulling into the driveway, her heart raced, not with excitement, but fear of what he would say or ignore this time. But the last straw came when she heard him on the phone, late at night. He was in his study, but the door was slightly open. Lian had come to ask if he wanted dinner. She heard her name, and then she froze. "I don't love her." Xavier's voice was low, emotionless. It was never about love. "She's just an obligation. She can't see anything. She can't even see who I really am." Lian stood there in the dark hallway, her hands clenched by her side. Obligation, that's all she was. She didn't cry that night. Instead, she sat in her room until the sun came up, her fingers resting on her stomach. "You deserve better," she whispered to the tiny life growing inside her. "We both do." By the time Xavier came home the next day, the closet was empty, her jewelry gone, her scent missing from the pillows. She had vanished. His staff searched every room, panicking as if the house had lost its soul. When Xavier heard the news, he didn't believe it at first. But when he walked into her empty bedroom and saw her wedding ring, placed carefully on the table, something inside him twisted. A sharp pain he had never felt before. "She left?" he asked quietly, more to himself than anyone. "Yes, sir." And she didn't leave a note. He stared at the empty space for a long time, not saying a word. The next week was chaos. For someone as powerful as Xavier Liu, not being in control was unbearable. He ordered searches, pulled surveillance footage, even threatened people, but it was like she had disappeared from the face of the earth. What he didn't know was that Lian had left the city, alone and pregnant, hiding her identity in a quiet coastal town. She had no one, no family left, no money of her own, But she had peace. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. And as her belly grew, so did her strength. She had made the right choice for her child. Meanwhile, Xavier's world began to crack. Every room reminded him of her, every empty chair, every quiet morning, every evening with no footsteps, echoing down the stairs. He told himself he didn't care. But he found himself staring at her photos late at night, remembering her laugh, the way she always waited by the door when he came home, the way she still smiled at him, even when he was at his worst. He began to wonder, had he already lost the only person who ever truly saw him, even when she was blind? Then one morning, 6 months after she left, Xavier received a call that changed everything. "Mr. Liu," the voice on the other end said, "We've found her." His breath caught. Where is she? But what he didn't expect was that she wasn't alone anymore. She had a baby in her arms, and Xavier realized he had not only lost his wife, he had lost the chance to be there when his child first opened their eyes. Now he'll do anything to get them back, but will Lian ever forgive the man who let her walk through darkness, alone? The moment Xavier stepped off the plane, the wind from the coast hit his face, sharp and unfamiliar. He wasn't used to this kind of place. Quiet, raw, honest. The exact opposite of the cold glass towers he ruled back home. But he didn't care. All he cared about was Chexan, finding Lian and the child. For 6 months, he'd lived with a gnawing regret that grew worse every day. At first, he was angry. How could she leave him without a word? But that anger didn't last long. What replaced it was something deeper, guilt. For the first time in years, he looked at himself and didn't like what he saw. The way he had treated her, the way he ignored her pain, her silence, her strength. He never deserved her. Now, as he stood outside the small clinic where she was last seen, he realized just how far she had come to escape him. A quiet nurse glanced up, instantly recognizing him from the papers. "She's not here anymore," the nurse said gently. "She left a few weeks ago." Xavier's heart sank. Again, he was a step too late. "Did she say where she was going?" "She didn't talk much," the nurse replied, then hesitated. "But she looked tired." Not just physically. Her eyes, even though they were blind, they looked like someone who'd been carrying too much alone. Those words hit harder than anything he'd heard in boardrooms or courtrooms. Alone. She had carried everything alone, including his child. Back in her small rented house, traces of her remained. A music box on the nightstand, a half-packed suitcase, a baby sock under the bed. He picked it up carefully, as if it might crumble in his hand. His son or daughter wore this, and he wasn't there. Meanwhile, Lian Yun sat on a wooden bench in a town even smaller than the last one, the baby in her arms. Little Rui was finally asleep after a long day, his chubby fingers curled tightly around hers, his breathing soft and warm. He had Xavier's eyes, though he would never know, not if she could help it. She didn't hate Xavier. That was the hardest part. She had loved him too much, and now she had to protect her son from that same pain. Rui didn't deserve to grow up in a cold house with an absent father. She wanted him to laugh, to grow up around kindness and love, not silence and shadows. But the world was small, and word travels fast. A visitor had been asking around, a tall, cold man in a sharp suit. People talked, and that night, Lian packed again. She couldn't afford to be found. While she moved quietly, another story unfolded behind the scenes. Xavier's assistant, Yuna, had been trying for years to cover up his family's dark secrets. the same ones that had ruined Leanne's life. It wasn't an accident that blinded her, and it wasn't fate that drove a wedge between them. There were people behind it, people who wanted Xavier to never fall in love, people who feared what he might become if he had something pure in his life. Xavier's mother had always seen Leanne as a threat. "She makes you weak," she had once told him. "She's blind. What kind of legacy is that?" Back then, Xavier didn't fight her words. He let them shape him. He let them build walls between him and the one woman who saw him more clearly than anyone. Now, all those choices were coming back to haunt him. Back in the city, rumors had begun to swirl. The media got a tip. The CEO's missing wife might be alive and with a child. The news exploded, and Xavier's company was flooded with questions. Investors panicked. Reporters stalked him, but he didn't care about the headlines anymore. He just wanted his family back. In a desperate move, he held a press conference. For the first time, he showed emotion on national television. "To my wife, wherever you are," he said, his voice steady but raw. "I was wrong. I failed you. And if you never come back, I'll understand. But I'll never stop searching for you, for our child. I owe you both more than I can say." The video went viral. Millions watched. Some cried. Some doubted. But Leanne saw it too. Alone, in a dim apartment, with her baby sleeping beside her. Her hands trembled. She had waited months for a single word from him, and now he was saying everything she had wanted to hear when it was too late. Could a heart so broken ever believe again? She didn't know what to feel, but someone else was watching too. Xavier's mother. Furious, realized she was losing control. She had gone too far. If Leanne came back, everything would change. The child would be the heir. The company would slip out of her hands. Her grip over Xavier would vanish. She made a call. Find the girl and the baby before he does. The danger was rising, and Leanne was once again in the middle of it, unknowingly being hunted by the same people who tore her life apart the first time. But this time, she wasn't alone. She had a child. She had courage. And maybe she still had Xavier's heart as she held her baby close. Watching the lights flicker outside her window, she whispered, "What do I do now?" A knock echoed at the door. She froze. Was it him, or was it the storm from her past finally catching up? Leanne stared at the door, her heart pounding like a drum. The knock had been soft, almost hesitant, but every part of her body was on high alert. She clutched little Rui tighter to her chest, feeling his soft breath on her neck. Was it Xavier, or someone sent to take him away? She took a quiet step toward the door, the old floorboard creaking beneath her. "Who is it?" she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's me," came the reply. "It's Xavier." Leanne froze. That voice, calmer now, heavier with regret, was unmistakable, but her mind was racing. How did he find her? Did he come alone? Was this another trick? She slowly opened the door just enough to see his face. And there he was, standing in the rain, soaked from head to toe. His usually sharp appearance, softened by the storm, his eyes were the same, but filled with something she'd never seen before. Real fear, real love, real loss. "Leanne," he said softly, "I'm not here to take anything. I just want to see our son." Her throat tightened. "Why now?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You had me for years. I waited. I begged. I needed you. And you turned your back every single time." Xavier lowered his head. "I know, and I live with that every day. But I'm not here to make excuses. I came because I realized nothing else in my life matters if I don't have you, two in it." Behind her, the baby stirred in his sleep. letting out a soft sigh. Leanne stepped aside, still cautious, but a part of her aching for peace. Xavier walked in slowly, his eyes landing on the tiny bundle on the bed. His chest rose sharply. "That's him?" he asked, voice cracking. She nodded, unable to speak. He took a careful step forward, as if afraid his presence might wake the baby or break the moment. "He looks like you," Xavier whispered, kneeling beside the bed. "But he has my nose." A tear slipped down his cheek. "I missed everything." Leanne's own eyes welled up. "Yes, you did." They sat in silence for a long time, both watching. The baby sleep. The tension between them softened, not erased, but no longer cutting. It was a silence filled with years of pain, misunderstanding, and finally, something like understanding. But the storm wasn't completely over. Back in the city, Xavier's mother had sent men to track them down. She couldn't afford to let Leanne and the child return. Not when they could destroy everything she had built. But what she didn't know was that Una, Xavier's loyal assistant, had been working behind the scenes to protect them. She intercepted the message, deleted the coordinates, and quit her job that night. "I won't be part of this anymore," she told Xavier's mother. "You've done enough." When the storm passed and morning arrived, Xavier and Leanne walked along the edge of the quiet town. He didn't beg her for forgiveness. Instead, he listened as she finally shared everything she had held in her heart. The fear, the loneliness, the way she had tried to stay strong for the child growing inside her. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she said, her voice raw. "I don't expect you to." Xavier replied, "I just want to be the kind of man you and Rui deserve. Whether that means standing beside you or staying far away, I'll do it." Leanne looked at him for a long moment. The man standing before her wasn't the cold CEO she had once feared. He was broken, human, real. Maybe, just maybe, people could change. Weeks passed. Xavier stayed in town, quietly helping at the clinic, fixing up the old rental house, spending time with Rui, who had grown attached to the man with sad eyes and gentle hands. Leanne watched, still unsure, but slowly. Her heart began to open again, not because she forgot what he had done, but because she saw how hard he was trying to make things right. Eventually, Xavier asked her one last question. "Can we come home? Together?" She looked at him, then at their son, who had just learned to take his first steps. The boy stumbled, then giggled, reaching for both of them at once. Leanne nodded, tears in her eyes. The return to the city wasn't grand. There were no press releases or public statements. Just a quiet move, a new apartment, and two parents finally learning how to build something real, not out of power or obligation, but out of love and growth. Xavier cut ties with the board. He gave up his CEO seat. He started a foundation to support women and children facing abuse and abandonment. It was his way of atoning, not just for what he had done to Leanne, but for all the people like her, silenced and overlooked. Leanne started her own journey too. She opened a small center to help blind women become independent, using the same courage that once helped her escape the darkest chapter of her life. They didn't pretend everything was perfect, but every day they chose each other, not because they had to, but because, at last, they wanted to. And that choice made all the difference. The end.